Andrew Fitzgerald's mansion gleamed under Florida's scorching sun, a monument to opulence and excess. Every detail reflected the inherited fortune of the young millionaire, from the crystal chandeliers in the grand halls to the infinity pool that seemed to merge with the horizon. Yet Andrew paid no mind to the beauty around him. To him, it was all just a symbol of his power over others. That morning, Camilla was scrubbing the library floor, trying to ignore the sound of Andrew's arrogant laughter upstairs. He was on the phone, organizing his upcoming birthday party, an event already promising to be a spectacle of luxury and superficiality. At 28, Camilla had learned to endure her employer's taunts. She couldn't afford to lose that job. "Camilla!" Andrew called, descending the stairs with confident strides. He was dressed impeccably in a suit despite the morning heat. His smile was calculated, as if he were plotting something. She looked up, holding her cleaning rag. "Yes, Mr. Fitzgerald, you're invited to my birthday party this Saturday," he said, feigning a casual tone. "I want all my employees there, dressed to impress." The sarcasm in his voice didn't escape Camilla. She knew Andrew would never invite her to such an event without ulterior motives. Still, she nodded, masking her suspicion. "I'll be there." As Andrew left, chuckling softly to himself, Camilla took a deep breath. Her chest felt tight. She knew she'd be an easy target at a party surrounded by wealthy, influential people. In the days that followed, Camilla found herself in a dilemma. She had nothing suitable to wear. Her savings were reserved for her 17-year-old brother, James, who dreamed of becoming a doctor. Since their parents' death in a fire, Camilla had taken on the responsibility of raising him, making sacrifices to ensure he had a chance at a better future. One afternoon, while returning from the supermarket, Camilla passed by a small clothing shop with a discreet sign, "Margaret's Atelier." The display featured a simple but elegant navy blue dress that caught her eye. Entering hesitantly, Camilla was greeted by Margaret, an older woman with grey hair and kind eyes. "Can I help you, dear?" Camilla hesitated but eventually explained her situation. Margaret listened intently, a soft smile lighting her face. "You're Camilla, aren't you?" Margaret asked, her eyes sparkling with recognition. "I knew your mother. She used to come here when she needed new clothes. She was a wonderful woman." Camilla was stunned. "You knew my mother?" "Yes, dear. She always spoke about you and your brother. She would be so proud of the woman you've become." The unexpected connection warmed Camilla's heart. For the first time in years, she felt someone genuinely cared for her. "I'll help you, Camilla," Margaret said firmly. "I'll make you a dress that shows the world who you truly are." As Margaret took measurements and selected fabrics, the two chatted about life. Margaret shared stories about the Fitzgerald family, particularly Andrew's father, who, according to her, was very different from his son. "He was a good man," Margaret said as she adjusted fabric on the mannequin. "He'd never treat people the way his son does." By Saturday, the dress was ready. Margaret handed Camilla a breathtaking creation, a long red gown with impeccable tailoring that highlighted her natural elegance. "You look stunning, my dear," Margaret said, moved. "Go to that party and show them you're just as worthy as anyone there." Camilla looked at herself in the mirror, barely recognizing the confident woman staring back. "Thank you, Margaret. I'll never forget what you've done for me." With the flawless dress, Camilla was ready to face whatever Andrew had planned for the evening. The main hall of Andrew Fitzgerald's mansion was more dazzling than ever that night. Grand chandeliers illuminated every detail of the extravagant decor. Tables laden with rare flowers, a gleaming marble dance floor, and impeccably uniformed waitstaff serving expensive champagne. The millionaire's birthday had drawn Florida's most influential elite, all competing to impress. Andrew, dressed in an elegant black tuxedo, greeted the guests with a smug smile. He stood at the center of the universe he had created, feeling invincible. "This is going to be fun," he remarked to his friends, glancing toward the ballroom entrance. He anticipated Camilla's arrival at any moment, imagining her shy and out of place, ready to be ridiculed. But when the grand doors opened, silence swept through the hall. Camilla entered, and every eye turned to her. Wearing the impeccable red dress crafted by Margaret, she exuded confidence. Her hair was styled in an elegant chignon, and her light makeup enhanced her natural beauty. Each step she took was poised, and the faint smile on her face left the crowd captivated. Andrew, who had begun to chuckle prematurely, was struck, speechless. He blinked several times as if unable to believe his eyes. "Who is she?" whispered one of the socialites beside him. "Camilla," Andrew replied, incredulity thick in his tone. "Your maid?" another friend asked in astonishment. "Andrew, she's stunning." Feeling challenged on his own turf, Andrew decided to act. He approached Camilla with the most insincere smile he could muster. "Well, it seems you took dress to impress seriously," he remarked, his tone dripping with sarcasm and irony. Camilla held his gaze unshaken. "I just followed your instructions, Mr. Fitzgerald." Her polite yet firm tone elicited a few discreet chuckles from nearby guests. Camilla noticed Andrew's discomfort, but ensured her own confidence remained unshaken. "I hope you're enjoying the party," Andrew continued, trying to regain control. "I am, thank you," Camilla replied calmly. "It's a wonderful event." Andrew swallowed hard. For the first time, he felt he wasn't in full command of the situation. Camilla, the woman he had always underestimated, seemed to hold everyone's attention effortlessly. As Camilla moved through the room, receiving compliments and admiring glances, she caught snippets of conversations about the Fitzgerald family. Margaret's words still echoed in her mind. "Your father was a good man." She had never been curious about Andrew's life, but now a sense of intrigue stirred within her. Something about the mansion, with its oppressive atmosphere, seemed to conceal secrets. On the other side of the ballroom, Margaret entered discreetly, dressed in a simple yet elegant outfit. She hadn't been invited, but she felt compelled to come, driven by a sense of duty. There was something Andrew needed to hear. Camilla spotted her immediately and walked over. "Margaret, what are you doing here?" "I had to be here tonight, Camilla," the seamstress replied, her expression resolute. "There's something about Andrew you need to know." Camilla felt a chill run down her spine. "What is it?" Before Margaret could answer, Andrew appeared beside them, his expression wary. "Margaret?" he asked, surprised. "I didn't expect to see you here." "And you didn't expect to see Camilla like this, did you?" Margaret shot back, a hint of provocation in her eyes. Andrew huffed, trying to mask his discomfort. "What do you want, Margaret? Don't you think it's about time you stopped meddling in my life?" "I'm not here to cause trouble, Andrew," she replied. "I'm here to remind you of who your father really was." The seriousness in Margaret's voice visibly unsettled Andrew. He let out a nervous laugh, attempting to deflect. "Do you think that matters now? My father's been dead for years." "It matters," Margaret insisted firmly, "because he would never have allowed you to become the man you are today." As the tension between Margaret and Andrew escalated, the guests began to sense that something unusual was happening. Camilla watched the scene unfold, unsure how to react. She felt that an important revelation was on the verge of being made. "Not here, Margaret," Andrew said in an irritated tone, low enough to try and keep up appearances. "Here, yes," she shot back without hesitation. "Because everyone needs to know the truth, Andrew." Before she could continue, Andrew grabbed her arm. "Let's talk somewhere else." Margaret glanced at Camilla, as if trying to give her strength. "You deserve to hear this too, Camilla." The night, which had begun as a cruel game orchestrated by Andrew, was turning into something far bigger. Andrew stood frozen, the weight of the revelation rooting him to the spot. His mind was a whirlwind, Margaret's words echoing over and over. "She's your sister." Camilla was as stunned as he was, but the strength she had built over the years kept her from falling apart. "Why now, Margaret?" Andrew asked, breaking the silence. His voice was no longer full of arrogance but of confusion. "Why did you decide to say this today?" Margaret looked at him firmly. "Because you needed to hear it, Andrew. Because somehow, seeing her every day in this house, you chose to treat her as someone inferior when, in truth, she's part of who you are." Andrew averted his gaze, clearly uncomfortable. He knew Margaret was right, but admitting it was a battle within himself. Camilla, however, had no such patience. "So that's it," she said, crossing her arms. "You're just going to stand there trying to justify everything in your head while I—" She paused, taking a deep breath to control the emotion threatening to spill over. "While I try to understand why my life has been a lie this whole time." Andrew finally met her gaze. His eyes looked different, reflecting something she had never seen before. Vulnerability. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "I never knew you existed, but now you do," Camilla responded quickly. "So what are you going to do about it?" Before Andrew could answer, the living room door slowly opened. James appeared, his face full of concern. He was holding a small tray with a water bottle and glasses, as if trying to find something to do while the party went on. "Sorry," he murmured, noticing the heavy atmosphere in the room. "I didn't mean to interrupt." Camilla turned to him, feeling a wave of relief at seeing her adoptive brother. He had always been her anchor, even without knowing the whole truth. "James," she called softly, "come in. Actually, you need to hear this too." James hesitated, but seeing his sister's expression, he entered and closed the door behind him. He placed the tray on a side table and crossed his arms, trying to look confident. "What's going on?" he asked, looking at Camilla, then Andrew. "Can someone explain?" Margaret sighed and looked at Camilla, as if giving her the chance to speak. Camilla took a deep breath and began. "James, I just found out that our biological father isn't the same as yours." She paused, watching her brother's expression shift to confusion. "My biological father is his father." She pointed at Andrew. James's eyes widened, and he took a moment to process. He looked at Andrew, then back at Camilla. "Is this serious?" Camilla nodded. "It's serious. Margaret told me everything. My biological father had a relationship before he met your mother, and from that relationship I was born." James crossed his arms, trying to absorb the information. "So, you're his sister?" "Yes," Camilla replied. "But that doesn't change anything between us, James. You'll always be my brother. None of this changes what we have." James relaxed slightly, but his gaze stayed fixed on Andrew. "And you?" he asked, challenging. "What are you going to do now that you know?" Andrew seemed ready to respond, but hesitated. He looked at Camilla and James, the two clearly united by a bond he didn't understand. For the first time, he realized how much Camilla had fought to maintain her dignity, even in such a difficult position. I don't know," admitted Andrew, his voice low. "This is a lot to process." "Well, start processing fast," replied James firmly. "Because from where I'm standing, Camilla spent her whole life being ignored by someone who should have been by her side. You've got a lot to make up for." Margaret smiled subtly, impressed by James's boldness. Camilla, on the other hand, placed a hand on his shoulder, as if asking him to calm down. "I'm not asking for anything, Andrew," she said. "I just want you to understand what this means. We're family, even if you don't want to accept it." Andrew looked at her, absorbing her words. He wasn't sure exactly how to feel, but for the first time in years, something inside him felt different. "I need some time to think," he finally said. "Fine," Camilla replied, her tone firm, "but don't take too long. We're not the kind of people who wait around for answers forever." James gave a slight smile, admiring his sister's strength. Andrew, on the other hand, felt a weight on his chest he couldn't quite explain. He never imagined that his birthday night would bring such a profound and life-changing truth. Margaret stepped forward, breaking the silence. "Andrew, Camilla, and James are all you have left of your family now. Don't let your pride destroy what can still be saved." Andrew didn't respond, but something in his expression suggested he was listening. He stood silently as everyone in the room watched him. He knew the truth he had just heard would change everything in his life, but accepting it felt impossible. For years, he had clung to the idea that he was unique, the sole heir to a legacy he controlled. Now, the woman he had looked down on for so long was his sister, sharing the same blood. Camilla waited for a reaction, but knew better than to expect much. Andrew wasn't the type of man to change easily. "I need time," he repeated, his voice sounding distant. Camilla sighed softly, nodding. "Of course, take the time you need. But in the meantime, my life goes on. I'm not going to sit around waiting for you to decide whether or not to accept this truth." James shot Andrew a firm look. "You'd better think this through, man. Because from what I can see, my sister's already been through way worse than your arrogance." Andrew averted his gaze, uncomfortable with the young man's bluntness. He knew James was right. Camilla was a force to be reckoned with, someone who had faced more hardship than he could ever imagine. Margaret broke the silence once more. "Andrew, your mother and her lawyer did everything they could to keep you two apart. But what they feared has already happened. You've found each other. Now it's up to you to decide whether to honor your father's wishes or keep living as if nothing has changed." "Honor my father's wishes," Andrew murmured, almost to himself. He took a deep breath and looked at Camilla. "Do you think I can just change everything overnight?" "I don't think you will change, Andrew," Camilla replied bluntly. "But I think that if you try, you'll find you're a lot more than this arrogant man you pretend to be." Andrew frowned, surprised by her response. He had expected anger, resentment, but instead found firmness and determination. "Is that what you think of me?" he asked without sarcasm. "It's what I see," Camilla answered, crossing her arms. "But what I see can change, if you want it to." Andrew looked away again, trying to process. Camilla was direct, something he wasn't used to. For the first time, he felt like someone saw past the money and the facade. James stepped forward, breaking the moment of silence. "And what about us, Andrew? You don't have to like me, but you do need to understand that I'll always stand by my sister. So if you want to be a part of her life, you'll have to deal with me too." Andrew couldn't help a brief, albeit tense, smile. "Seems like you're more protective than I thought." "Always," James replied without hesitation. Margaret placed a hand on Camilla's shoulder, smiling at her. "You two aren't alone. You have each other, and now, Andrew, you have him too, if you want." Andrew stood up abruptly, adjusting his coat as if trying to regain control. "I'll think about all this, but don't expect miracles overnight." "We're not expecting miracles," Camilla replied, her smile brief but genuine. "I just hope you'll try." Andrew nodded, and for the first time, he felt a weight begin to lift. Maybe, just maybe, he could start to change. The days following Margaret's revelation were tense at the Fitzgerald mansion. Andrew avoided any direct conversations with Camilla, but she knew he was reflecting on what he had learned. Camilla, for her part, split her time between work and calming conversations with James, who was still trying to make sense of the new dynamics. One morning, as Camilla was arranging flowers in the main hall, Andrew appeared at the door. He was dressed casually, rare for him, and seemed hesitant. "Camilla," he called, his voice softer than usual. She turned, surprised. It was the first time he had spoken to her since the night of the party. "Yes?" Andrew ran a hand through his hair, clearly uncomfortable. "Can we talk?" Camilla set the vase aside, crossing her arms. "We are talking." He took a deep breath and walked over to one of the armchairs, sitting down as if he needed physical support for what he was about to say. He began, staring at the floor before finally meeting her gaze. "I wanted to apologize." Camilla blinked, surprised. "Apologize? For what?" "For everything," he admitted sincerely. "For the way I treated you, for ignoring who you really are, and for not knowing." Camilla stepped closer but kept her tone firm. "It wasn't your fault that you didn't know, Andrew, but how you choose to act now that you do, that's entirely on you." Andrew nodded, seeming to absorb every word. "I know. That's why I'm here." "So what do you want?" Camilla asked directly. Andrew hesitated but then stood and looked her in the eye. "I want to make things right. I don't know exactly how, but I want to try." Camilla crossed her arms, evaluating him. "All right, where do you think you should start?" Andrew swallowed hard, realizing he didn't have an immediate answer. Before he could say anything, James's voice came from the doorway. "Maybe he should start by apologizing to me too." Andrew turned to see James standing there, his expression serious. He didn't look angry, but it was clear he wasn't about to let Andrew off easily. "You don't owe me anything," James continued, stepping into the room, "but you owe my sister. And if you want to be part of her life, you're going to have to accept that I'm part of it too." Andrew blinked, caught off guard. He had never dealt with someone as straightforward as James. "I didn't realize it was a package deal," Andrew said, attempting to lighten the mood. James shrugged. "It always has been." Camilla shot James a grateful look. He had always supported her, and even now, with the weight of the truth hanging over them, he remained by her side. Andrew exhaled deeply, putting his hands in his pockets. "All right, let me get to the point. I want to start by helping you both with whatever you need." James frowned. "What do you mean?" Andrew turned to him. "I know you want to become a doctor, James, and I know it's not cheap. I want to pay for your education. Make sure you have everything you need to reach that goal." James's jaw dropped. "Are you serious?" Andrew nodded. "Yes, and it's not just that. I want you both to know that this house is as much Camilla's as it is mine." Camilla stepped forward, her gaze skeptical. "Why are you doing this, Andrew? Guilt?" Andrew shook his head. "No, it's not guilt. It's because, for the first time in my life, I feel like I can do something good. Something my father would approve of." Camilla stayed silent for a moment, trying to grasp the sincerity behind his words. Finally, she spoke. "I won't deny that this surprises me, Andrew, but I'm not going to accept it as some magical solution. You'll have to prove that you're really committed to changing." Andrew nodded. "Understood." Still in shock, James looked at Camilla. "Do you think he's serious?" Camilla sighed. "I don't know, but I think he deserves a chance." Months later, Andrew began to take a more active role in Camilla and James's lives. He kept his promise to fund James's education, something the young man initially approached with suspicion, but eventually came to deeply appreciate. Camilla, for her part, started noticing genuine changes in Andrew's behavior. He began treating her with respect, asking about her life, her dreams, and even the struggles she'd faced. One day, while walking through the mansion's garden, Andrew stopped beside Camilla and said, "You know, I never thought I'd have a sister one day." Camilla laughed softly. "And I never thought my brother would be someone like you." Andrew smiled, though his voice carried a touch of melancholy. "I hope that's a compliment." "Taos, it's a start," Camilla replied sincerely. The truth about their past didn't erase the scars, but it paved the way for building something new. Andrew began to realize that his wealth wasn't the only thing that defined him. While Camilla finally found a piece of her biological family, James, always Camilla's steadfast support, also found strength in his relationship with Andrew. He knew he wasn't just building his future, but helping to unite a family torn apart by time and secrets. What about you? What would you do if you discovered a sibling you never knew existed? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this touching story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. We share new heartwarming stories almost every day. Click on the links on the screen to discover other incredible stories that will inspire you.